Have you ever really stopped to think about what's actually powering your smartphone? Or maybe your electric car, or even, the big advanced defense systems that are shaping our future. We're talking about the secret sauce, really, the essential ingredients that make all this modern tech possible, rare earth elements. And today, we're taking a deep dive into the fascinating world of the global rare earth elements market. We often call them REs. We've got our hands on some really incredibly detailed projections. These come straight from cognitive market research. So our mission for you, our listener, is basically to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge from all this data, understand the forces driving this, critical global market, and hopefully give you a shortcut to being really well informed. You might even surprise yourself with what you learned today. Yeah. So first things first. What exactly are rare earth elements? And why are they suddenly so critical?
Yeah, that's a great place to start. Because the name rare earth, well, it can be a bit misleading, actually. These elements, things like neodymium, dysprosium, they aren't necessarily that scarce in the Earth's crust. What makes them rare, or maybe critically important, is how incredibly difficult and frankly costly they are to extract and process into usable forms. Think about how much lighter and faster your phone is now compared to maybe 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Right. Well, that miniaturization, that power boost, it just wouldn't be possible without rare earths. Like dysprosium, those tiny, powerful magnets. It lets devices shrink while their performance, explodes. They have these unique magnetic, optical, catalytic properties. Absolutely essential for high-tech, clean energy, modern defense, you name it.
Okay, that context really helps frame the bigger picture here. Now, let's unpack the overall market numbers. The global RE market is showing some, truly impressive growth. Back in 2021, the whole market was valued at just over $3.1 billion. Fast forward to 2025, just next year, and it's projected to hit over $4.3 billion. And if we look even further out to 2033, we're talking a staggering $8.7 billion.
Wow.
That works out to a compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, of almost 9%. It's 8.977% to be exact.
Yeah, and what's truly striking there isn't just the dollar figures themselves. It's that average nearly 9% year-over-year growth. That really signifies the relentless pace of innovation and adoption in these key industries. These aren't just abstract numbers floating around. They reflect the absolutely foundational role REs play in sectors like high-tech, defense, renewables, electronics. It's a clear signal, really, that the world is betting heavily on technologies that absolutely require these specific materials.
It's pretty clear the global market is booming then. But the story gets even more compelling when we kind of zoom in on the regional breakdown. And we have to start with the undeniable powerhouse, the Asia-Pacific market.
Absolutely.
This one region alone, back in 2021, was valued at an astonishing $2.64 billion.
Already huge then.
Right. And by 2033, it's projected to reach over $7.6 billion. That's with an impressive CAGR of 9.268%. Even higher than the global average. And looking inside Asia-Pacific, China really leads the charge. Its market was around $776 million in 2021, projected to hit almost $2.3 billion by 2033.
That's massive growth.
It is, but it's not just China, although they are dominant. By 2033, we also see major contributions coming from India, projected close to $955 million, Japan at over $454 million, and South Korea over $625 million. And there are other significant players, too, like Australia, Singapore, Taiwan, plus a really notable surge from Southeast Asia as a whole. That jumps from about $195 million in 21 to over $600 million by 33.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, Asia-Pacific's dominance, and specifically China's projected share within that.
Yep.
Well, it has profound implications for global supply chains. It means a huge chunk of the global supply for these absolutely critical elements stays highly concentrated geographically.
Yeah.
And that kind of centralization, it creates strategic vulnerabilities. It impacts everything, pricing stability, the pace of tech development globally. It really raises that crucial question about how other nations, other regions might respond. How do you deal with such a concentrated supply?
That's a really vital point about supply chain concentration. So the next question is, are other regions making, significant strides to maybe balance this out, even if they aren't reaching Asia-Pacific scale? Let's shift focus, maybe look across the globe, starting with North America.
They absolutely are trying. While North America's market is, yes, much smaller currently, it's strategically very important. Stood at around, $158 million back in 2021. And it's expected to grow to nearly $279 million by 2033. The CAGR is lower, sure, about 4.6%, but that growth is still significant. It's driven, I think, by a strong desire for more self-sufficiency, building domestic capacity.
Yeah, and the data shows the U.S. is the clear leader within North America. Projected growth from about $131 million in 21 to over $227 million by 33. Canada and Mexico also show steady growth. Canada from around $14 million to nearly $28 million. Mexico from about $13 million to $23 million by 2033.
And this growth, even if the overall numbers seem small compared to Asia, it signifies a real strategic effort. North American industries are working to secure these crucial inputs for their own advanced manufacturing, defense, tech sectors. It's really about bolstering domestic capabilities, trying to reduce that reliance on external, highly concentrated sources, which is, vital for long-term economic resilience and national security.
Okay, so strategic moves there. What about Europe? How does its REE market look? It was valued around $105 million in 2021, projected to reach over $191 million by 2033. So growth and the CAGR is actually a bit higher than North America's at 5.278%. Yeah. And looking at individual European countries by 2033, Germany is projected to lead the pack, over $41 million, followed by the UK and France, both in the mid-20 millions. We also see pretty significant contributions from Italy, Spain, Sweden. Even smaller markets like Switzerland, Denmark, Luxembourg are noted, contributing to a rest of Europe figure around $23.5 million.
What's particularly interesting about Europe, I think, is how diversified that market seems. It's spread across quite a few countries, right?
Yeah, it's not dominated by one or two.
Exactly. And that suggests a pretty broad-based integration of REEs into diverse manufacturing and tech sectors across the continent. It probably reflects Europe's concerted efforts, things like the European Raw Materials Alliance, trying to build more resilient supply chains, foster innovation region-wide, basically ensuring they're not left behind in this global tech race that heavily relies on these elements.
Okay, so we've covered the established players. Now let's turn our attention to some maybe emerging markets, but with really high growth rates projected. South America is fascinating here. Its RE market was about $77 million in 2021. It's projected to shoot up to over $237 million by 2033. And get this, it boasts the highest regional CAGR we've seen so far, an impressive 9.709%.
Wow, yeah, that's a big number.
Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, Chile are all highlighted as key contributors to that growth by 2033.
That exceptionally high growth rate in South America, well, it signals significant potential, doesn't it, for future resource exploration, maybe extraction too. While it's currently a smaller player overall, the region does possess, vast untapped mineral wealth. So this kind of growth rate indicates growing investment interest. It could position South America to become a much more pivotal source for REs down the line, which in turn could help diversify that global supply we talked about and influence future market dynamics as demand just keeps surging.
Very interesting potential there. Okay, next up, let's look at the Middle East market. Valued around $65 million in 2021, forecast to hit over $193 million by 2033. Also a very strong CAGR here, 9.428%, almost as high as South America's. Within the region, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Turkey, and Egypt are projected to be leading the way by 2033.
This does raise an important question, though. What does it really mean for a region, traditionally famous for its oil and gas resources, to show such robust expansion in the REE market?
Yeah, good point.
It strongly suggests, I think, a strategic diversification, moving beyond traditional energy, recognizing the growing importance of high-tech industries, renewable energy. This could fundamentally reposition the Middle East, not just as an energy supplier, but also as a key player potentially in the supply chain for critical modern technologies. It reflects a really forward-looking economic shift.
Okay. Diversification seems key there. Finally, let's cover Africa's REE market. It shows steady growth, starting from around $59 million in 2021 and projected to reach over $170 million by 2033. That's a solid CAGR of 8.21%. Steady growth, yeah.
South Africa and Nigeria are noted as the key countries contributing most significantly to this growth by 2033.
What's fascinating here, I think, is that while Africa's market figures are currently lower than some other regions, that consistent growth, starting from a relatively nascent stage, it points to significant untapped potential. Given the continent's vast geological resources, we know they're there, this growth could pave the way for Africa to emerge as a much more substantial future source of rare elements, again, potentially diversifying the global supply, which could impact future market stability and, accessibility for everyone needing these materials. Okay, so, wow. We've covered a lot of ground, a lot of numbers. What does this all really mean for us, for you listening? Our deep dive clearly reveals a global rare earth elements market poised for, well, substantial and consistent growth. It's driven by this relentless march of technology, from Asia-Pacific's continuing dominance to the strategic growth we see in North America and Europe, and then these high-potential emerging markets in South America, the Middle East, and Africa. It's a truly interconnected global story about absolutely critical materials.
Absolutely. And these projections, they just underscore the completely indispensable role of rare earth elements, not just in the tech shaping our world right now, but for decades to come. Understanding these market dynamics, it isn't just about the economics, the dollars and cents. It's about recognizing the critical inputs for future innovation, for economic competitiveness, and frankly, for national security right across the globe.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. With such vital elements being so concentrated in specific regions, right now at least, and global demand just continuing to skyrocket, how might this evolving global rare earth elements market influence geopolitical relationships and international collaborations, or maybe even conflicts over the next decade? Something to definitely mull over, perhaps, as you tap away on your own rare earth-powered devices. Imagine for a moment uh, the heart of your electric car, right? The motor itself,
Yeah.
or, the core bits inside your smartphone, or even those huge wind turbines you see popping up everywhere, generating clean energy.
Yeah, they're becoming pretty common sights.
What if I told you that all that amazing tech, its power, its efficiency, it all hangs on just a handful of elements, stuff you've probably never even heard of?
It's a fascinating point. They're often overlooked.
Exactly. So today we're diving deep into this really critical world of rare earth elements, REEs for short, and the whole market around them.
It's a complex market, definitely.
We want to uncover what's really driving the demand, the big roadblocks holding things back, and maybe some of the clever trends shaping what happens next.
Sound good.
And just so you know, all the insights we're digging into today come from solid data crunched by cognitive market research.
Good data is key here.
Okay, let's unpack this.
It really is remarkable, isn't it? How these elements, you barely see them, but they're becoming just essential to, well, everything modern.
Totally. It feels like demand has just, I don't know, exploded recently. What's really behind that surge right now?
You're spot on. The demand curve is pretty steep.
Mhm.
One of the biggest forces, no surprise, is the global push for clean energy.
Right, the green transition.
Exactly. Think about wind turbines, those huge things. They rely heavily on rare earths, like neodymium and praseodymium.
For the magnets, right?
Precisely. For these incredibly powerful but also compact magnets, that's what makes the turbines so good at grabbing wind energy.
Ah, okay.
And they often add dysprosium, too, which helps the magnets keep working well even when things get hot inside the generator. Without REEs, you'd need, well, much bigger, clumsier, less efficient machines.
So it's about power density.
That's a great way to put it. This whole clean energy revolution is just sucking up REEs like never before.
So it's not just more renewables, it's making them better, more efficient. And I guess the electric vehicle part of that is huge, too.
Oh, absolutely. The EV market is another massive catalyst, just enormous.
Yeah.
Rare earths are completely critical for making electric motors that are both strong and light. That's key for range. And they're advanced batteries, regenerative braking systems, too.
Really? Which ones are key there?
Well, take elements like terbium, neodymium again, and lanthanum. They're pretty much integral to the modern EV drivetrain.
Huh.
They let manufacturers build lighter cars, more efficient ones, get more miles per charge. And with governments pushing EVs with incentives and stricter emission rules,
Right.
that global EV boom translates directly into just soaring RE demand.
It's amazing. They're not just enabling green tech, they're making it actually perform well. But it's not just green stuff, is it? Where else are these elements hiding?
Oh, they're everywhere, really. We're also seeing them used more and more in high-tech electronics and, importantly, in defense systems.
Like what?
Well, your smartphone, your laptop, tiny amounts of elements like yttrium, for instance, help make the screen colors really vibrant.
Oh.
Yeah. And then you get into things like missile guidance systems, advanced radar. There you find elements like Cerium used for its powerful magnets that can handle really high temperatures. So REEs are vital, not just for the phone in your pocket, but for national security, too. That gives them this huge strategic importance on the world stage.
It's kind of mind-blowing that these specific, often obscure elements are quietly running everything from daily gadgets to, like, global defense strategy. Here's where it gets really interesting. how basic they are to everything, but also how fragile the whole supply situation seems. But like you said, it's not all straightforward, is it? What are the biggest hurdles, the roadblocks for this market?
No, definitely not all smooth sailing. There's some pretty significant restraints that really cast a shadow.
Such as?
Well, first off, there are serious environmental and health concerns. Big ones, tied to mining and processing REEs.
How so?
Unlike, say, copper, which you might find in a vein, rare earths are typically really dispersed. Tiny amounts spread through huge amounts of rock.
Ah, so you have to process way more material.
Exactly. Massive amounts of ore for really small yields.
Yeah.
And that process generates a lot of waste, often toxic waste, sometimes even radioactive byproducts.
Oh.
Yeah. So that naturally sparks resistance, from regulators, from the public. It makes it really hard to scale up mining operations, especially with environmental laws getting tighter pretty much everywhere.
So even with demand through the roof, just getting them out of the ground cleanly is a major, major problem.
It is a huge one. And then there's the elephant in the room, geopolitical dependency.
You mean China?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
For decades, China invested very strategically in rare earth mining and processing, often when other countries backed away because of those environmental costs and the sheer difficulty.
Right.
So now they control something like, over 60% of the world's RE production, maybe more for certain processed elements.
60%? That's a lot of control.
It is. And that heavy reliance, it leaves everyone else quite vulnerable. Serious supply chain vulnerabilities.
How does that play out?
Think about it. Trade wars, sudden export restrictions, maybe political instability. Any of that can cause prices to go wild or just completely disrupt access. And that hits everything from car production lines to, critical defense programs.
Wow.
This raises an important question. How can nations actually secure a stable supply of these absolutely essential materials in, an increasingly uncertain world?
That's a massive strategic weak spot, not just an economic one. And I'm guessing getting them isn't cheap either, on top of everything else.
You got it. Lastly, the high costs and the fact there aren't many good alternatives are a real constraint.
Why so expensive? Still the processing.
Yeah, largely because they're so dispersed, like I said, and the chemical separation process to get the individual elements pure. It's complex and costly.
And you can't just swap them out for something else easily.
Not really. For many applications, especially those high-performance magnets, there just aren't viable substitutes that do the job nearly as well. So industries that rely on them are kind of stuck, vulnerable to price spikes and any supply disruptions.
Okay, so we've got this picture. Booming demand, but huge environmental issues, scary geopolitical dependence, high costs. Feels like something's got to give. How is the industry trying to, adapt or find solutions? Are things changing?
Absolutely. People aren't just sitting back. The industry is actively working on several fronts. One major trend, driven by both sustainability goals and those security worries, is the rise of REE recycling technologies.
Recycling rare earths. How does that work?
Well, instead of only digging new mines, companies are getting much better at finding ways to recover rare earths from old stuff. Think e-waste, magnets from old motors or turbines, used EV batteries.
Ah, urban mining, sort of.
Kind of, yeah. And the great thing is this doesn't just cut down on the environmental damage from new mining.
Right.
It also helps build a circular economy. And crucially, it directly reduces that dependency on primary mining, wherever it might be happening.
That sounds like a definite win-win. Less waste, more secure supply. What else? Are countries trying to find their own sources?
Definitely. We're seeing a big push for global diversification of the supply chains. Countries like the U.S., Australia, India, Canada, they're investing heavily.
How? Opening mines?
Yes, investing in developing their own rare earth reserves, exploring new deposits, but also, importantly, building domestic processing and refining capacity. That's been a key bottleneck outside of China.
I see.
So you see things like public-private partnerships, government funding, even strategic stockpiling. It's all aimed at cutting that reliance on, primarily Chinese exports and building more resilient, maybe more local supply chains.
A real effort to spread the risk and production. And what about the processing itself? Any breakthroughs there to make it, cleaner or cheaper?
Yes, absolutely. Technological innovation in refining is really picking up steam. New methods are starting to gain traction.
Like what?
Well, things like molecular recognition technology, MRT, it's pretty neat. It basically uses these highly specific chemical keys to sort of unlock and separate out individual rare earths with amazing precision.
So less waste, more targeted. Exactly.
Much less chemical waste, potentially lower costs.
Yeah.
And then you have advancements in things like ion exchange systems, and people are looking hard for greener alternatives to the traditional solvent extraction method, which uses a lot of harsh chemicals.
Interesting.
These innovations are all working towards improving the purity, the efficiency, and crucially, the sustainability of REE processing, reducing both the environmental footprint and hopefully the operating costs too. What's fascinating here is just the sheer ingenuity,
Yeah.
the adaptation happening as the industry tries to figure out how we source, process, and even reuse these absolutely vital elements.
Okay, so pulling this all together,
Right.
what does this all mean for us, for the future?
Well, it means the rare earth elements market is incredibly dynamic, constantly shifting, and just fundamentally critical to so much of our future tech.
Right.
It's being pulled forward by the clean energy revolution, electric cars becoming mainstream, all those strategic uses. But at the same time, it's wrestling with these really significant challenges: environmental impact, geopolitical risks, costs.
Yeah.
But the key takeaway, I think, is that innovation in recycling, in refining tech, in diversifying where we get them from, that's what's paving the way forward. These elements are essential, often working right under our noses, and we're finding smarter ways to manage them.
It really is clear that the future of so much tech and maybe even global power balances kind of hinges on these elements most of us never think about. So maybe something for you, the listener, to mull over. How will this ongoing global race for these essential elements actually reshape international relations, our environmental policies, and the direction of technology in the, say, next 10, 20 years?
A good question.
It is. And remember, all the insights we shared in this deep dive were sourced from the latest analysis by Cognitive Market Research.